Have you ever wondered how a single act of kindness from a stranger could change the entire course of someone's life? Imagine this, the bustling streets of a city alive with honking horns, hurried footsteps, and the restless energy of people chasing their dreams. Yet within this chaos, a story quietly unfolds. A story that reminds us of the unseen threads that connect strangers, the invisible ties that bind humanity together, and as you watch till the end, you will realize that fate often writes its most powerful chapters when we least expect it. A broken bar. It began on an ordinary afternoon, when Marcus, a tall, broad-shouldered black man with a gentle face and a voice that carried warmth like a summer breeze, was walking back home after finishing a long shift at the construction site, his boots heavy with the dust of labor, his hands calloused from work, and yet his heart light because he carried within him the simple satisfaction of earning his bread with dignity. Marcus had grown up in hardship, raised by a grandmother who taught him that life may not always be fair, but kindness costs nothing, and though the city often looked at him with wary eyes, often crossed streets when he approached, and sometimes judged him for his appearance before knowing his heart, Marcus never allowed bitterness to take root. He believed in offering help where he could, because he remembered what it felt like to be unseen, to be overlooked, to be judged unfairly. A broken bar. And it was in this moment of ordinary routine that his life intersected with a twist of destiny, for as he walked past the crowded park near the train station, he noticed something unusual, something that made him pause. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, standing all alone near the fountain, her cheeks streaked with tears, her small hands clutching a faded stuffed bunny, her eyes darting around in desperate search, and the world around her rushed on as if blind, people weaving past, too busy to notice, too distracted to care. But Marcus noticed. His heart instantly tugged by the sight, because he saw not just a child, but a reflection of himself years ago when he had once felt small, lost, and forgotten. A broken bar. He knelt down slowly, careful not to scare her, and with the gentleness of someone who knew the weight of trust, he asked softly, "Hey there, sweetheart, are you okay? Did you lose someone?" The little girl sniffled, her lips trembling as she whispered, "I can't find my mommy." Broken bar. Her voice cracked with fear, and in that instant, Marcus felt a surge of protectiveness, a sense of responsibility, as though the universe had placed this child in his path for a reason. He extended his hand, not demanding, not rushing, but offering, "It's all right. You're safe with me. We'll find your mommy together, I promise." She hesitated, her big brown eyes searching his face, and for a moment Marcus worried she might pull away, that she had been warned not to trust strangers, especially men who looked like him. But then something in his steady gaze, something in his calm smile eased her, and with a timid nod she placed her small hand in his rough palm, and in that simple touch a bond was formed, fragile yet powerful, a bond that would soon change lives beyond imagination. A broken bar. They began walking through the crowded park, Marcus crouching slightly to her level, asking her name. "Yes, Sophie," she said softly, "and where she last saw her mother." But her answers were scattered, her memory blurred by panic. "Still," Marcus reassured her, scanning the crowd, guiding her carefully, shielding her from the careless rush of strangers, and though he was just an ordinary man finishing a long day, in that moment he was her protector, her anchor. A broken bar. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they searched, Marcus lifting her onto his shoulders so she could see above the sea of people, calling out gently, "Anyone seen a woman looking for her daughter?" But no one stopped, no one cared, until finally he guided her toward the information booth near the station, knowing that was the logical place for reunions, and just as they reached, Sophie suddenly gasped, pointing with trembling excitement, "Mommy!" Her voice rang out like a bell of hope, and Marcus turned to see a woman rushing forward, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement, her hair immaculate despite the chaos, her eyes wide with terror and relief, her tailored suit slightly greased from frantic searching as she looked nothing like the mothers Marcus was used to seeing in his neighborhood, for she carried the aura of power, of authority, of someone accustomed to commanding rooms. Yet at that moment she was only a mother, desperate and vulnerable. As she dropped her handbag and scooped Sophie into her arms, tears streaming down her face, whispering again and again, Oh my baby, broken bar." The crowd that had ignored Sophie now glanced curiously, some even smiling at the reunion, but none noticed Marcus standing back, his heart swelling with quiet relief, his lips curving into a humble smile because for him, the reward was in seeing a child safe in her mother's embrace. He turned to leave, not expecting gratitude, not seeking recognition, just content that he had done what was right. A broken bar. But then the mother looked up, her eyes locking with his, and in that gaze was a storm of emotions: gratitude, awe, curiosity, as if she realized that this stranger had stepped into the gap where countless others had looked away, and for a moment words caught in her throat before she managed to whisper, "Thank you, broken bar, thank you so much, sir. I don't know what I would have done without you." Marcus shrugged lightly, almost embarrassed by the attention, murmuring, "Just glad she's safe, ma'am," and with a respectful nod, he turned again, disappearing into the crowd before the mother could ask more, leaving her standing there, holding Sophie, wondering about the man who had appeared like an angel in disguise. A broken bar. What she didn't know, what Marcus didn't know, was that she was not just any mother, but one of the most powerful CEOs in the city, a woman whose name carried weight in boardrooms and headlines, a woman accustomed to deals worth millions, yet who in that moment had been reduced to nothing more than a terrified parent. And what Marcus didn't realize was that this small act of kindness would ripple far beyond this day, intertwining their fates in ways neither could yet imagine, because sometimes the greatest rewards of kindness are hidden, waiting to be revealed in the next chapter of life's unfolding story. A broken bar. And dear viewer, as you sit here feeling the warmth of this moment, ask yourself, how many times have we walked past someone in need, too caught up in our own world to notice? Marcus didn't have wealth, he didn't have status, but he had something far more powerful: a compassion, and that single choice to act became the seed of something extraordinary. If you want to know how life has a mysterious way of circling back, weaving threads we thought were finished into new patterns, and what Marcus believed was just a fleeting encounter with a lost child would soon blossom into something far greater than he could imagine. For weeks after that day in the park, Marcus carried on with his life, waking early for construction shifts, spending evenings with his grandmother who now grew frail with age, and occasionally thinking of Sophie, the little girl with trembling hands who had clutched his own, wondering if she still remembered the stranger who had guided her through the crowd, but dismissing it as one of those moments that lived only briefly in memory before fading. For Marcus had no expectation that his simple kindness would echo back into his world. Meanwhile, across the city, in glass towers far removed from the dust and grit of Marcus's days, Vanessa Carter, the powerful CEO who was also Sophie's mother, found herself haunted by the face of the man who had saved her daughter, his humble smile imprinted on her mind, not because he had asked for anything, indeed, he had disappeared before she could even ask his name, but because in a city where wealth could buy anything, she had seen something money could not purchase: the raw, selfless goodness of a human soul. And as she sat in boardrooms where men argued over profits, as she signed contracts worth millions, she found her thoughts drifting back to that stranger, wondering who he was, what his life was like, and why he had helped with no expectation of reward. The broken bar. Weeks turned into months, until one rainy evening destiny decided to bring them together again, though neither expected it. Marcus had just finished his shift, his clothes damp from the drizzle, his stomach growling as he stopped by a small diner on the edge of downtown, a place where truck drivers and workers filled booths with laughter and stories, and as he sat down with the plate of hot stew, the bell above the door jingled, and in walked a woman in a tailored navy coat, her hair sleek, her heels clicking against the worn tiles, her aura commanding the room even in such a humble space. And though Marcus barely looked up at first, when he did, his heart posited the face was unmistakable, though he hadn't expected to ever see it again. It was her, the mother from that day, though now he realized she looked even more striking up close, her eyes sharp yet softened by warmth, her presence both intimidating and inviting. Vanessa too froze when her eyes landed on him, recognition lighting in an instant, her breath catching as she whispered to herself, "It's him." A broken bar. For a moment they both simply stared, two worlds colliding again, until Vanessa crossed the room, approaching his booth with a smile that carried both gratitude and relief, and said softly, "I was beginning to think I'd never see you again, Marcus," surprised at his unexpected bond.